Welcome to Mav Sports Take. We're episode 56 here. 56. I can't believe we're already that far in. Your weekly podcast for sports, business, and a whole lot more. The business of sports that you hear about and a lot that you do not. Here we tackle everything. There is no filter. This is unmuzzled sports talk. We have a great show for you tonight with the season starting this Thursday. We are recording on a Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern Time, live on Mav Sports Take and Mav Sports live stream, excuse me. We're also live on YouTube and Facebook. And with the season starting on Thursday, we wanted to get a little fantasy football action going on in here. I know personally I am on four different fantasy leagues this year, including a dynasty league. So we wanted to really get into some expert opinions in the fantasy world. So we have Mr. Kevin Coleman coming on, who's a featured Devi writer at Fantasy Pros, co-host of the Devi Royale, co-host of Super Fantasy Bros, and also a member of the Triple Play Fantasy team. To take it a step further, after we talk to Kevin about a little fantasy action, we're going to talk to Jason Centrella, who David and him are actually starting a new podcast, Dual Threat DFS, to talk about the betting world along with the fantasy world as well. And I know David's going to kind of give us a little insight onto that. And then guess what? 3 interviews tonight. We got Mr. Quay Holmes, who is a star running back for East Tennessee State this past week at 149 yards, 6.5 yards per carry in a 23-3 victory over SEC in-state foe Vanderbilt. So action-packed show. We're going to have Kevin on in just a couple minutes. Before I start, I always have to say this, first and foremost, hope everybody out there is doing really well. This is an interactive podcast. So if you want to throw some questions in for any of our guests while we have them on, please feel free. It's going to be a really fun show. But of course, the first thing that we always do every single week after the intro is David Turner. How are you, my friend?
Feeling much better. Back to get at it. And yeah, we've got a couple new things going here at Mavericks. Been working at them while I've been down and on the couch, and now they're finally ready to, allow our viewers, our audience, our fans to know what's going on here. And one of them is the new podcast that I will be doing with Jason, and it's all about, DFS, daily fantasy sports. And we will be posting twice a week on Tuesdays and on Saturdays to help you line your lineups. So we'll get into more of that when Jason's on, but that is just one of the announcements that we will be making this evening.
I love the announcement. David, can I actually ask you one quick question before we let Kevin on? So as far as the new podcast, is that strictly football? Because obviously we're very football centric, or is that from a full sports world?
Right now, with our expertise, it's going to be a football-centric going into this season. We will do a little bit of college, but a lot of NFL stuff for the NFL games and stuff. I've been learning a lot about this DFS world, and they get really specific. You can do single games. You can do multiple games. You can do leagues. You can do so many different things I didn't even know was possible. It's like when we did our 2K episode and we started talking to Charlie and the Warriors coach and everything, and then you start realizing more and more, right? Because here in Arizona, the FanDuel and DraftKings has not been legal up until 3 days ago or so, 7 days ago. So it's a brand new season. That's why Jason kind of approached me. Was like, hey, why don't we duel it out? I'm the guy who plays all the time. You're the NFL scout, and then you get an account, and we'll see who wins at the end of the year. And I was like, bet, let's go.
Bet, literally.
That. Literally.
That's awesome, man. So we're going to get into that conversation with Jason, which I know we're excited about. We're going to bring on Kevin now to talk everything fantasy for us. We got Kevin Coleman popping on with us right now. As I said in our intro, Kevin does a lot of things. First and foremost, you can follow him at DuBois_22 on Twitter. He's a featured Devi writer at Fantasy Pros, co-host of the Devi Royale, co-host of Super Fantasy Bros, is also a member of the Triple Play Fantasy team. Kevin, appreciate you hopping on, man. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing good out here in California, just enjoying the hot weather, trying to stay cool. It's 105 degrees again. I thought we were over this, but we are not. So you know how that goes. No water, and it's hot as heck. But I appreciate you having me on. I respect you guys and respect what you guys do and your site and everything. So it was always an honor to come on here and talk to you for a little bit.
You know what I love about that intro right there is he's hurting at 105. I'm over in Arizona. We're happy it's 105 today, and it's not 110 or 115. Like I literally was on the phone with my aunt earlier. She's like, "How's the weather?" I'm like, "Oh, it's only 105 today. It's perfect."
Yeah.
See, man, we've been getting like 90 in New Jersey, and it is awful to me. So I don't know how you guys do it. To be honest with you, you West Coast guys are weird. I don't know how you do it, man.
Hey, listen, young buck. When you get, you gotta get thick skin out. You gotta thin your skin out a little bit there.
Yeah, well, I'll get to that. But Kev, I know we really want to touch on a lot of things in the fantasy world here. Of course, I think for casual fans, obviously, we're talking redraft leagues where your team is going to change every single year, and then we get into the dynasty leagues where, hey, you're keeping those players for a long period of time. And then we're talking about Devi Leagues where we're talking about drafting college football players, and it gets super in depth. So I wanted to take us to the Devi side because I know that you do a lot of work in that area. So can you how did you get into the Devi Leagues? And just give me a little glimpse of how in depth the research goes. Because I've seen some people clip, all guys coming out of high school and stuff. It seems like it gets pretty crazy in the Devi world.
It can get it's about as crazy as you want it to be. Devi's one of those things that's addicting, especially if you love college football. And if you love prospects, it's just one of those other areas that can get in there. How did I get into it? I've been playing Dynasty for a long time, and one of my buddies is just in a league, and he's like, "Hey, we have an opening in our Devi League," and I'm like, "Oh, what's Devi?" And he was like, "Oh, it's where you can draft college football players." And then I knew I was going to be hooked because college football is my first love. It's everything that I've always been, and so like when I found out I could draft my favorite college football players and just add that level of just we're a little crazy of like just to my leagues, and now I can trade like Bryce Young for Patrick Mahomes in a league. That stuff just gets awesome and fun, and that's kind of how I started. And one of my first ever Devi picks was Ezekiel Elliott, and even though I'm a Michigan fan, unfortunately I had to take Ohio State guy because they have all the talent, and I took Zeke.
Rip to the recruiting department right there. Live fire.
I can do that as a Michigan fan. I feel like I have the right, but I took Zeke, and then Zeke became a Cowboy, and I'm a Cowboy fan, and so it kind of hooked me, and so ever since then I've been in it. And man, like research can go as much as possible. I'm in one league that we can draft high school players, freshman high school players. So people have already drafted Arch Manning. People have drafted some of these guys that are coming up. So like you got to recruit a little bit. I know some other degenerates that are in like you can draft. It's like 100-round startup, and like you can literally draft. Like they're drafting guys like eighth graders. I know people drafting eighth graders. Now I'm not that crazy. But as far as like my research goes, I focus on the seniors that are in high school, and I really break them down. I started going over all my top 100 seniors in June and July. And I look at prospects for next year's class. I have a big board. We're going to be doing some stuff for Fantasy Pros this year to where we're going to be releasing our rankings and stuff. But I really go in depth basically for high school seniors, and I start looking at recruiting that way. And just do profiles in each guy, and that's how I kind of got started, and that's what I do.
Kev, is it get like super? Let me choose my words the best way. So like when you're scouting a senior and they go down the pipeline, do you get like super proud if you're like, I hit on that man, I knew that guy was going to be good, and now he's great?
Yeah, I mean, we all know that like a lot of it's luck, right? Especially high school players. And as a high school coach, I know like there's so much variables that goes into play with these guys and if they hit or not. But it is fun to watch. And I will say you get better. Like you get better at scouting and understanding like how players hit, and it helps you with dynasty because you know what you're looking for in a prospect. And if they don't hit those measurables as a freshman, really, then for me personally, like I'm just staying away from them altogether. Even if they have good years in college, like we saw Kenneth Gainwell. I was kind of always out on Gainwell. I like him. Like I have him on as a breakout player, but I wasn't as high as others because I saw his profile, and the NFL doesn't want that profile anymore. And so like you learn how that kind of goes through the system. So like it's fun though. Like, and when you get it right, you're like, yeah, see, I do know what I'm talking about. Then you don't talk about the other 10 misses that you had. So that makes you just look
not. As a scout, you never talk about the misses.
Never.
You only highlight the makes.
Yeah, this is fantasy Twitter to a nutshell, right there. I only talk about the hits. The misses, that wasn't me. That was somebody else. I don't know.
That was somebody. I took a recommendation. I should have known better. Something like that, right?
Yep.
Now, who are some of these breakout NFL players that not a lot of people are talking about? Like, give us a few that we can, hang some price tags on.
Yeah, it's funny when I saw this. It's so hard because I feel like everybody talks about it all the time. Like everything, I feel like every player gets there. But three guys that I really, I don't want to. I think breakout can be determined in different ways, but I think Darnell Mooney is going to have an amazing year this year for the Bears. For me, from a fantasy perspective, I think as soon as Justin Fields starts playing and actually it's not Andy Dalton's carcass throwing the ball back there, I do think that Darnell Mooney can realistically be a wide receiver 3. So I'm not saying that he's going to be jump up all the way up into those top two tiers, but he's getting drafted like ADP is like 54. So realistically, he's getting drafted almost as a wide receiver 6. That's incredible value to me. I do think that he had, out of all the wide receivers last year, he had the most potential air yards, but because of the quarterbacks that he had last year, he had the most unrealized air yards as well. So that just shows that he needed a more accurate quarterback. I think when Fields is there, he's going to definitely pop off there.
Whoa, you think Fields is an accurate quarterback? Interesting. Keep going.
I think he's more accurate than Andy Dalton. So that's kind of how I'm playing it there. And I actually like Justin Fields. I know that there are some question marks about that, but I think that he elevates Darnell Mooney's profile more than Andy Dalton does.
I would agree there. I would 100% agree in there. And I know we have some people in the chat. Just wanted to shout out. Looks like we got Mike O'Brien, D-Turn, and Rob. Apparently that's our nicknames, David. We're back at it.
I guess we're back at the nickname coining, huh?
We are. Kev, I know we don't have you for a ton of time, so I wanted to move from the NFL side to the college side. So we'll talk a little more of the Devi, I guess, kind of background stuff. So give us same question, just now focused on college football players. Who are some guys, because I have to admit, I am a much bigger college football guy than I am an NFL guy, admittedly. I'm very open about that. Who are some college guys that you're expecting to pop off? Could be freshmen. It could be whatever classification.
Yeah, I went all over the board for you guys on this one. I love Zonovan Knight, running back from NC State. I've been a big Zonovan Knight guy this year in Devi Leagues, and I've been getting a lot of good values. And you saw him against USF. He had 163 yards and a touchdown. They have some weird usage in how they use their running backs, though. Like, I wish they would give him the ball more. It frustrates me because I do think that he's a workhorse. And this is, to me personally, is a down class for running backs. I don't see it's not as high as some other people have kind of talked about. It's like, so Knight realistically could. I mean, there's a chance he could work his way up into the top 3, top 4 running backs in this class. So Knight was a guy that I've been going after. Matt Corral is a guy that I have receipts on that I've talked about could be, top 3 quarterback of this class as well. I do think this quarterback class is not as, I don't want to say it's high, but there are some question marks in this class compared to maybe the last couple that we've had. So Matt Corral from Ole Miss was a guy that I was definitely targeting. Jalen Tolbert from South Alabama, wide receiver. He's definitely one. I like small school guys as a Fresno State season ticket holder, and also as just I like those small school stories. I know they don't always do well to profile and call in the NFL, but Jalen Tolbert's another kid that I think that has a shot. South Alabama that he put up good numbers last week. He has a good frame, good size, a good release. I liked a lot of things that I saw from his tape. And then the freshman that it hurts me to say is Xavier Worthy from Texas, just because he was going to Michigan. And then, of course, we screwed it up. But he saw the most snaps for a freshman at the wide receiver position in the first week. Sark is going to use him all over the field. He's going to use him just like he used Jalen Waddle, I guarantee it. And he is explosive. And I think that he's going to have the biggest rise among like Devi circles and college football circles that we see.
Interesting one. I want to ask you about Jalen Tolbert for a second, because you talked a little bit about like going back to the high school profiles for a guy like him that is maybe a little under recruited, because Jalen was a guy that was actually a 2-sport guy, played baseball a little bit at South Alabama. How does that, I guess, the line between like, hey, he's a small school guy, so I need to, temper my expectations as far as like the high school realm. Like, how does that work as far as, I guess, evaluating fantasy from a big school versus small school perspective, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So realistically, like for me, I don't take any small school running backs. Like when I'm in Devi mode and like fantasy mode, I stay away from non-Power 5 running backs. Now, wide receivers, I think that we've seen them hit. The hit rate for them is a little bit more, but I definitely want to see them hit that 30% dominator rating. And Tolbert is close to that. He hasn't hit it yet, but he is close to it. And I like, and it's weird. You might know better than me with the NFL draft stuff. Like 6'3", 195 used to be like, yeah, but now NFL guys it's 5'9", 180, and you're like, wait, what happened to my mouth? And so like, I think it's taken me a couple years to adjust how the NFL is starting to look at these guys, but I do still like his profile. But from a Devi perspective, Tolbert's not a guy you're probably drafting in Devi unless it's deep, like 10 rounds, like deep guy. He's more of like a C2C, which is a whole nother kind of format. But as far as Devi, you're looking at like maybe a shot later. I do like what he has, but yeah, he would be more of like he's in your rookie draft rather than on your Devi roster.
Gotcha. And so C2C, that's Campus to Canton? Do I got
Campus
that right?
to Canton. And that's a whole nother we could do a whole nother show on that. But yeah, that's a whole nother like degenerate, like you're doing two teams, NFL and college side.
Wow. I love how he keeps going back to the degenerate term. I love it. He's like, I know all these degenerates that do this, degenerates, but you're friends with them, so it's interesting.
I'm a degenerate as well. Like I'm in way too many of those leagues. I mean, the C2C startup is 45 rounds. So you're drafting by the 45th round, college guys, and you really got to know your stuff in there. And it's fun, but it takes a special level. Like you guys know, like you have to know these guys. Like you can't just wing that stuff.
No, I'm glad that the rounds I've been in are 7 rounds, and then I sign a couple free agents after the draft.
Yeah,
because I mean 45 rounds, I would be a nap. I would need protein shakes and freaking ham sandwich.
Your ADHD medicine. You need everything.
Yeah, a lot of that. So, hey, tell us about some of the content that you have working on for your recent put out.
Yeah, you guys, we do every week a Fantasy Pros Devi Primer. Me and Jeff Bell, Christian Williams from the Devi Royale, we basically write up who you should be watching in college football every week. And Fantasy Pros, we're thankful enough for them to put that out for us. I have a Campus to Canton website that basically focuses on C2C leagues. I do a stock watch and we look at values, and then obviously the podcasts that come out. But take a look at the Fantasy Pros Devi Primer. Really proud of that. Fantasy Pros has never done Devi before, and they brought us on this year because they want to do it. So we're trying to get Devi more out there for the masses because we know it's kind of a niche thing. So we'd appreciate you guys taking a look at that.
Yeah, Kev, I guess the last thing I'll ask for you is I mentioned your Twitter handle and all that good stuff, but social media handles, if you want to throw them out there real quick, we really do appreciate you all the time you're giving us tonight.
Yeah, it's kind of out there, but it's an homage to my Cowboys and my late grandfather. So it's at @DuBois_22. Emmitt Smith was his favorite player, and so I've always just kind of kept it. I never really wanted to get involved in fantasy, and all of a sudden I happened, so now I just got to keep it. So yeah, @DuBois_22. Go Cowboys on Thursday. Let's hope they can shock the world, right, and play the Bucs.
Let's hope. I just want some good football, to say the least, man. So again, Kevin Coleman, you can catch all his work. Fantasy Pros, co-host of Devi Royale, co-host Super Fantasy Bros, also a member of Triple Play Fantasy. Kevin, appreciate it, man. We'll have to do this again. We'll talk to Canton sometime soon, all right?
Hey, anytime, guys. I appreciate you letting me on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kevin.
Yep, thanks, guys.
All right, well, there's our first taste of a little fantasy football, David. Do you know anything about Campus to Canton? You know anything?
I knew nothing about – I never – listen, but before you booked him, I didn't know what the F a fucking Devi League was, a Campus to Camping thing. I don't know any of that crap. I was just like, you know what? We're going to talk some fantasy football. Who should we be starting Thursday to Saturday this week? And then all of a sudden I see all these questions and I'm like, what is this stuff? I was spending half my day researching all this crap to know what he was going to be talking about tonight. And I love how he just referred to himself and his friends as degenerates because I mean, it's just like, oh my God, you're like totally digging into high school kids and scouting them to, I mean, it's just like, you got to put a cap on it somewhere, brother. I got to put a cap on it somewhere.
So I'm doing a dynasty league for the first time. I have not dove into the Devi realm. I don't know if I'll ever get into the Devi realm because, like, honestly, like, I just don't have enough time, to be honest. I applaud those guys, though, man. They're putting in some work, man. They are going about, they are hitting those recruiting profiles, all the recruiting platforms. Like, they are doing their due diligence. And I think it's really cool. I mean, if we're talking about, like, the long-term outlook, because, like, these guys are following these players for years and years and years. And obviously, they're not NFL scouts, right? So, like, it's a little bit of a different, perspective. But it's still pretty cool to get all that background information and to know these guys inside and out. I do agree, though. There is probably a line where it's like, it's probably a little too far. But it's still, I still respect the hard work. I just want to put that out.
I always respect hard work. You know me. But when you're going that far, I mean, I would cap it at senior in high school, getting recruited. Okay, I get it. But when you go past that or deeper than that, I'm like, oh, come on now, man. Let the kids be kids. Let the kids be kids.
Well, it was a lot for sure, but I'm glad we got into the fantasy world here, man, because Kevin Coleman's a cool dude. Glad that he gave us a little insight into some NFL guys, some college football guys. We're about to have Jason Centrella on in just a second. Before we do, Maverick Sports Consulting has room to onboard for 5 new clients this fall. If you are an athlete, a coach, an agent, or a professional working in the athletic field, take advantage of our openings today. We work with our clients to maximize their current positions as well as prepare them for their next. If you are ready to take your career by the horns and achieve your goals, be one of the 5 new Mavericks clients. But don't delay. There's only 5 spots open for the fall. Head to mavericksportsconsulting.com today. So we got Jason Centrella is about to join us right now. I'm taking him on literally as we speak. Oh, he is not there. I'm going to bring him on. I think there's 2 of them. Hey, Jason. Oh, is Jason there? No.
Jason? On, off. You guys hear me?
Yes, there he is. Hey, Jason.
We have audio. What about video?
Not sure.
Not seeing you on video, Jay.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that camera.
He's the ghost tonight.
There should be, Jason, there should be on the bottom right of the screen next to where there's the mute button, there should be a little video camera. I think all you have to do is hit the video camera and it should pop you on. While we hopefully figure that out, Jason Centrella, I just want to do a quick intro into him. He has worked for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for 3 seasons in their PR department, as well as worked at the NFL League office in the PR department, as well as the football development department. He is an avid DFS, which is, of course, daily fantasy sports player, and will be the co-host of a new podcast, Dual Threat DFS, alongside our own David Turner.
Yeah. Technical difficulties notwithstanding, but we're excited to join the Maverick Sports umbrella, and we'll definitely put a face to the name eventually. Definitely next time, if not within the next few minutes. But happy to be here, fellas. Feeling a little. So I'm showing my IT rookie status right now.
Well, we appreciate you having it on. I'm sure we'll get through the technical issues. If not, we'll definitely have to have you back on, Jason. I think a good way to start is I gave you a little bit of an intro, but I would love if you could just give our audience. I mentioned what DFS stands for, but tell us a little more about it and why it's caught on so fast over the last 2 years.
Man, it sure has. It's the best thing going right now. It combines gambling, degenerates. David's not a degenerate, but we'll get him there in probably another week or so. DFS is degenerates for sure, right? Every game is important down to the last minute. It's basically like fantasy, but it just got a lot more important because you can make, there's $1 million winners every single week. There's going to be a winner. It's not like you're playing blackjack and everybody at the table can lose, right? There's gonna be people that are gonna get paid, and their processes are gonna pay out. It's life-changing money, right? Plus, it's just fun. So if you're just in it for the fun of it, you can do a little 10 person league just for the day against your boys. Throw $10 on it, whatever, and you got bragging rights until at least till Sunday night game. But it's just not going away. The league ownership group is in on it. Their owner, they fully embraced it. So now you're getting basically full cooperation from the league, which is huge. Before guys were getting hurt or the transparency wasn't there, but now everything is in place. So you're seeing it thrive now.
Now, what made you feel that a DFS podcast was a good idea to jump into with me?
That's a great question. I don't know why anybody would do anything with you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
David has the scouting brain that I admire from afar, and I'm going to come to basically just pick his brain from up close, and I can't wait to apply that to the DFS world. Plus, I think that people are going to want to hear what he has to say. It's not all about projections and weather and yards and schemes, and you got somebody who's in the film room with the athletes who know what the coaches want and what the tendencies of the coaches are and the players. So it's like how much you're inside the ropes, behind the scenes. It's invaluable information from like, according to me anyway, in my opinion.
I know for me, well, I don't know, but we'll see. We got to get through episode 1, then we'll go further. But for me, it was exciting to get involved in this because I've always wanted to try this DFS stuff, but in Arizona, it hasn't been legal, but till 7 days ago, like I was saying earlier, Ryan. So, we haven't been able to try it. And then when Jason approached me last week, and I was like, wow, I was like, you know what, let's really jump on this and create something, because I think it'll be fun to show the audience me as a rookie going through this stuff. Even though I do have knowledge of stuff and a lot of football knowledge, scheme, fit, draft strategy, this is all different. It's like we heard about with our first guest tonight, way different strategy on how to draft teams, or try to draft players and things. And even talking with Jason to get the content ready for our show, I've learned about staying off certain players and getting on other players just because the betting's going to be different, and if there's less people betting on a certain player, and you win with them, you make the money and you get more points, different stuff. It's just crazy. So the strategy is a lot different, which is completely starting to suck me in.
Right, and it's kind of goes along with gambling in general. Obviously, gambling, DFS is basically gambling. I know there's like a little debate about that, but there is no debate. But the public doesn't know what they're doing in general, right? We know that casinos wouldn't look the way they look if they didn't know what they're doing. Your bookies would be out of business in 10 seconds. So it's kind of like the same thing here. Like if the public is united on a player, sometimes obviously they're gonna perform, but most of the time, if enough of the public is united, the guy's going to fail. I don't know if there's no reason. I don't know what the reason is, but it's just fact. It's just crazy how it works out that way. And you really have to, for example, if there's a two-headed attack at running back and one of them gets hurt, so the other guy gets to start, like that guy isn't automatically going to perform. You might have to look at the third guy who never gets to play. Now he's excited to play, get his 10, 12 catches or touches, and he's going to be like minimum salary because he never plays. So that might be the guy. It's the guy behind the guy, as if I could quote Trent from Swingers.
Jason, let me ask you something, because I am very fascinated by this, because honestly, this is not my world, and I'm kind of learning as we go along here with the daily fantasy sports kind of perspective. So for this, are we drafting players every week? Are we drafting teams and kind of, exchanging like almost like a dynasty league? Like, is there different sectors of daily fantasy sports?
So they have just started now with like best ball leagues that you can play, and it'll do the whole entire season. But for the most part, it's it's 1 day season, really 1 week season, if you will. So yeah, you're gonna just draft your team just for that day. It's like if you draft Josh Allen first round in your fantasy league and he gets hurt, you're done for the season. But in this, you're only done for that day, right? So you can pivot to somebody else for the next week, or if he gets hurt at 1:30, you can jump into a 4:00 league, and now you're all good again, right? Everybody's healthy. So, there's a lot of options. There's a lot going on. It can be crazy, and you could drown if you try to get to it all. So you got to go slow. You can't try to swallow it all whole.
I have a feeling I'm going to need a life preserver.
Yeah, right. You got to you clean one room of your house at a time.
Single room. That's really funny. And I know, Jason, we had written down here that just for a strategy that we're going into this opening week of games for the audience out there in case they are involved or they want to get involved. But if you want to give us a couple strategies, like what are things that we should be considering going into this opening week now from a DFS perspective?
So yeah, like a beginner, the first thing you want to do is just go to your NFL spreads and look at the over-unders, right? Those are the games that are projected to have the most points, which translate to the most touchdowns, most yards, most fantasy-friendly environments, right? Those aren't always the case, and those games that are projected to go over don't always go over, but that's like a good starting point. And you want to see who's favored and by how many. If you want like a road underdog running back, you better convince yourself that that team is going to be in the game, or the game script's going to take over, and that guy might not get enough carries, Ezekiel Elliott. You got to really think your way through everything if you want to succeed. If you want to win big money, obviously you can cash and keep it friendly and keep it fun, but you want to take into account a lot of the totals, I like to look at what the public is doing and as far as which teams they're like loving. Some of the teams this week, basically road favorites are like kryptonite for me. I'm very leery when it comes to road favorites. I like the home underdog, and I like the ignored home underdog. So this week, like San Fran, Green Bay, and Seattle are road favorites. I know the Packer game is now neutral, but those teams, one of those three teams, I think is just going to lose the game outright. So I would look at at the Lions, at the Saints, and at the Colts. If you want to try to be like a contrarian lineup, so to speak, because if one of those three teams loses, the other team is going to win. And how are those teams going to win? Is it going to be Jonathan Taylor with a big game? Jameis Winston can have a big game. The Lions. I know that's disgusting, but Swift, Hawkinson, somebody from that team is going to do something. And I'm not in love with the Niner offense as it is, but obviously they should win 37-10, and everybody goes on and they run for 260. But if they don't, hey, you might see a little DeAndre. You might see some action from the Lions offense, even though we don't know anything about Dan Campbell and his staff and what they're trying to do yet. But we'll see. So,
well, when Campbell was in Miami, he just chopped wood. I mean, he was a guy who was old school mentality, chopping wood. So I don't think there's going to be a high-powered offense being shown its face up there.
He likes to eat kneecaps. That's all I know about him.
Yeah, right. Might see some ejections, some skirmishes, some something like that.
Yeah. Jason, yeah. I would love to ask you, because I know, I've played fantasy football for a long time, and I'm wondering, especially with like the betting side of everything, how much do you feel like just practice and experience in this realm, in the DFS realm, has kind of helped you to better understand it? Because I have to think there's probably a lot of trial and error to this type of side of betting and side of fantasy.
Yeah. So like anything else, right? You don't really learn until you fuck up. And right. When you better learn when you fuck up anyways. So you do a lot of trial and error. You see what works, what doesn't work, and you file it, and then you try to not apply it. It's just hard though, because your instinct is to gravitate towards the popular guys, or the guys with the good matchups, or the guys who are going to the Hall of Fame, or some team that's supposed to win big that day. Like that shit is just not that easy. But you just keep falling into that trap. It's hard to get away from that. But once you take some emotion out of it, and you talk your way through it, and you look at all the games, and you try to just be neutral, it starts to make a little more sense. Plus, you want to look at like week winning lineups that, if you're in a tournament with 1,000 people, you finish like 600th. Go check out the top 5 and see who they had, see how see what's working for people, because what you did didn't work that day, and what they did probably wouldn't work the next week. But you have an idea of like how you're going to build a roster. Why did this make sense? Stuff like that. You got to think your way through the game, really, or through the whole slate, as they say. That's a DFS term, slate.
I know David wants to get into the Dynasty Devi side. Do you do any work in there too, Jason?
I'm not. Yeah, those are cool little terms that I learned. I liked campus to Canton. That's beautiful. But I don't know anything. I'm very limited on.
He's joking, because there's no way I'm going to dive into freaking recruiting and researching freaking high school kids. There's never in my life.
You have all the time. You have all the time in the world. I don't know what you're talking.
But what you're going to do is dive into 4th and 5th receivers when there's a shitty Thursday night game that you have.
But I already know those guys. Like I know those guys. I know the schemes. I know the players. So that's not like a big research project for me. Going to high school. You know how many high school football players there are in this country? Oh, good God, no.
I'm sure I could look it up right now if you want me to, David. How many high school football players?
But knowing that 5th receiver who was a college quarterback, that's a little. Some people are going to be like, "How the hell do you know that guy?" Right? But you're already there, so I think it's kind of the same thing. But high school freshmen, I agree. Like that's a little crazy. Even juniors are a little crazy. But
I can't go there. No way.
That industry is going way, way young.
So on our first show Thursday, we're going to do a Thursday this weekend, but typically we'll be doing a Tuesday and a Saturday. And, I know we talked about Tuesdays are going to be like an early week projection, see what people can, go out and, kind of forecast for their week. But then Saturday, the day before the NFL games, we're really going to approach the NFL games and lock it in. and people can listen to our podcast on our Patreon account. They have to go follow us on there. We'll do our free posts on Tuesday, and then the Saturday is the post. So you got to go over to the Patreon account and get the starting lineups. But what should they expect? What should the audience be prepared to hear?
Yeah, we're gonna attack the games from two different sides. The scouting side and then the DFS side, basically, for lack of a better term. And we're gonna see, who we have in common, who we oppose on. Obviously, our own opinions are gonna come into play here, but I am personally excited just to hear what the schemes are gonna tell us what to do and what not to do, and what coaches and tendencies and players. And I'm like Matt Stafford. I can't wait to see him play with the Rams. I mean, the handcuffs are off finally. So that's just somebody that I'm excited to see, and I want to hear. I'm excited to hear what your take on what they can do with that offense, as opposed to what they couldn't do or what they were scared to do or whatever McVay is adding to it now, stuff like that. So there's just the bottomless pit of information, and we're going to dig all the way down as far as we can.
David, you know who else likes the Rams? Wants to see what Matt Stafford does?
Another guy on this podcast.
He might be.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, I know you can't wait to see. I'm excited. When they made that trade, when we got on our podcast that week, I was fired up because I love Matthew Stafford's one of my favorite quarterbacks. I mean, in the recent years. And he has just been stifled up there, and with Detroit, with so many bad teams and players and schemes around him. And I agree with you. I think under this new regime down here in LA, and then they went and got Sony Michel and gave him breathing new life into his career. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a scheme that fits really well. I think Stafford, the way he's smart with the ball, he knows where to go with it, and he's got arm talent above arm talent. So, when you talk about being able to take the top off this freaking offense, what it really could be, I don't think we've ever seen McVay have a quarterback like this either.
Yeah, and the Akers injuries even unleashing him a little bit more.
For sure. Yeah, and easily the most talented quarterback that McVay's had. The best thing, David, honestly, I'm so excited just for the simple fact of he has Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, and Sean McVay obviously is a great offensive mind, but it's just nice for him to finally get some recognition, because I feel like you mentioned arm talent for a second. Guys are going to talk about Pat Mahomes, they're going to talk about Josh Allen. I feel like those are a couple of the guys that people think about, when we're applying arm strength, ability to throw from multiple angles and to layer the football to different levels of the field. But Matt Stafford, man, does he have a top 3 arm in the NFL? Possibly, man. That dude has a hose. You know what I mean? So
right up there with Russell Wilson and Allen and Cannon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to mention Russell around Ryan.
Oh, I love Russell Wilson. I really do. I love Russell.
You were not loving him last year when I was talking about Russ cooking all time.
Yeah, because it's you wore it out, and then he fell off the face of the earth the last 6 weeks of the season. But yeah,
I don't know what happened there, because he was cooking some good food most of the year.
They went so far left on it. It's let Russ cook. I'm like, cool, that's awesome. But then they forgot that they have to run the ball to let him keep cooking. Gotta run the ball at some point.
You're gonna call those play actions. You got to kind of keep running. But I don't know what they were doing.
But they got my boy up there now. Shane Waldron's our new offensive coordinator. Known Shane for freaking 12 years, so I know what he's about to do. He's about to bring some good offense up there to Russ.
They stole Shane from the Rams too. It's just goes back to the Rams, just like Notre Dame. It's always the
McVay coaching tree, right? It's already growing.
That's it, man. That is absolutely it. David, any last second questions to Jason before we let him go for the night? Jason, really appreciate all the time, of course, and I will definitely have to have you back on. I'm going to be tuning in this week to the first episode, but I'll let David ask any final questions that he may have or anything that he wants to throw out there in the excitement of the new podcast launch.
No, you know what I'm excited about is it's a new challenge for me. Yeah. And I'm getting to do it with Jason, who was on our draft. He was part of our draft coverage show when we did the live draft show. Yeah. So that's where Jason and I met, and now we get to rekindle this, this friendship and put it into a podcast. And I get a new challenge in life, which is this DFS world, which I really don't know much about. You and I sit here, we talk draft picks, we talk about draft strategy, we call draft math, all that stuff. Well, now in the DFS world, and like we heard earlier tonight, there's a whole different kinds of draft strategy, which, people are trying to suck me into. So it's like, okay, let's see what we got. And when Jason starts talking about this stuff with the 1-day games and the leagues and this and that, and how many times this person's, how many percentages this guy's in this league and all it, my head was spinning. I told him, I said, dude, you gotta give me a day or two to like really sit back and think about this, because I didn't know anything about it. So I started researching. I created a couple accounts and started looking at it. And I'm like, okay, I think I can do this. I think I can be successful at this. It's a different challenge. So let's see what we can do. And to go up against him and battle with him each week and give the audience, what he thinks and what I think. And, hopefully it turns some results for him. I mean, because it's like we've learned, it's a good source of income. Someone's going to win every week, whether it's you and your buddies in a friendly league, or you're in a $1 million competition. Somebody's winning the games this week. So you got to be prepared to, put some money on the line and go after it.
Absolutely.
Spoken like a true degenerate in training.
In training.
Jason, really appreciate all the time again. I know David just kind of highlighted a bunch of the excitement around, but if there's anything that you want to leave the viewers with, whether that is social media handles, or you want to put a shout out, or you want to tell us where you can find the podcast when it is live, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm at Teterboro JC on Twitter and Instagram. I'm just a little nugget maybe for the Tampa-Dallas game. We know that Tampa stuffs the run like crazy, and we know that their O-line doesn't look good, and Dak, who knows if he's healthy. So I don't know if I would lean toward Zeke at all on any of my lineups on Thursday night. Obviously, you got to have him a little bit here and there, but I wouldn't be loading up on Zeke. Maybe a little Gio Bernard in the new James White role. I'm liking him a little bit more.
David loves Gio.
Gio's my boy, bro.
And he looks good with his like porno mustache now in his media picture. So I mean, if he can give us like 5 for 50 with a touchdown, that'd be great out of the backfield.
That's fantastic. Well, Jason, again, appreciate it so much. We'll definitely have to have you back on again to give us a little more insight into the podcast when it's up and running and kind of in the middle of the season. But we really do appreciate all the time. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, guys. Enjoyed it, and I will look forward to being back.
Talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, bro.
All right. Well, David, we are rocking and rolling, man. So we got the fantasy football perspective, and then, of course, we just got the DFS side of everything, which, of course, you're now talking about, hey, let's make some money along with being great fantasy football players. We have one more great interview that we're going to get on in just a second. Before we do, are you an athlete, a coach, a foundation, or charity? Would you like Mavericks to make you a free NFT? Well, all you have to do is follow, share this episode, and DM us at Mav_sports on Twitter. And our brand new NFT department will make one free NFT for you to post and sell. Follow, share, and DM at Mav_sports for a free NFT tonight. So, David, that last interview of the night, we're getting away from fantasy football. We're getting back to the real thing. We're getting back to the football field. A lot of fun. I haven't even really talked to you much about it, but a lot of fun college football this past weekend, past week in general, really. There's been games kind of littered throughout. And we saw, I think it ended up being 6 FCS opponents beat FBS foes this week. It was fantastic.
And got one coach to retire.
Yes, and Randy Edsall is retiring for UConn after their loss to Holy Cross. So we saw South Dakota State absolutely blow the doors off of Colorado State. And then I needed to hit up Quay Holmes, who is a running back out of East Tennessee State, who I'm bringing on right now, after their huge upset victory over in-state Vanderbilt. He had 149 yards, averaged 6.5 yards per carry. Quay, appreciate you coming on, man. How's it going?
It's going good. Thanks for having me.
Nice to meet you, Quay.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, man. I know, Quay, we talked about, trying to get a interview together a little while. So I thought, like, what better time, man? Because I've been wanting to kind of touch base with you because I'm impressed by you just as a football player in general. But then this huge win, man. And we're talking, of course, East Tennessee State. You're in the same state. You're going down there, over there, I should say, to Vanderbilt in Nashville. And you take down SEC foe, FBS foe, in-state foe. Take me through that game. the atmosphere around the team during the upset and just how surreal that environment was during that game?
Yeah, I mean, it was unforgettable, man. I mean, we came in. I mean, obviously we knew it was a SEC team, FBS team, and for me, really just looking around the country, like you said, seeing all the upsets within the FCS to FBS team. So, I mean, we were just like, man, why not us? And let's just join that wave. And I mean, as the time started running out, and we kind of knew that we was winning. I mean, you could tell we really just did something special out here today.
Yeah, and I was so excited, man, because you're talking about the atmosphere, we're talking about the great FCS just landscape for a second, but we're talking, I mean, because how far is Vanderbilt from East Tennessee? What's it, like 4 hours or so, I think, right?
Yeah, it's
Somewhere
like 4 hours, and it's in a different time zone. I think that's a Central time zone too.
That's funny. I didn't even realize that, because when I hit you up, I was like, yeah, we're on Eastern time, so apparently we're both on Eastern time. I did not know that. That's a nice little nugget there, but how cool is it, man, just outside of the FCS to FBS and to the SEC, but to know, like, hey, when we're talking about, you know, the state of Tennessee, you're going to talk about the Tennessee Volunteers, you're going to talk about the, you know, Vanderbilt Commodores, and those are kind of the first thing that come to mind. Being able to beat a team, FBS, SEC, and in the States by 20 points, it had to be just crazy to think about, really.
Yeah, it definitely was, and I mean, I just feel like it really put us on the map, you know, a lot more, and that was just the biggest goal. You know, we didn't want people thinking that it was just going to automatically be a blowout. And for us to go out there and dominate the way we did, I really think we opened a lot of people's eyes.
How's it helped, you know, your confidence as a player, as well as attacking the rest of the season, but as well as the team, I mean, the rest of the season? What's it been like since the victory? What is the conversation like, and how has it changed since the victory?
Well, you know, with those big games, man, it's hard to forget about it. But the thing is, you know, every Saturday we have a game. So we can't come in on Tuesday getting ready for our next game, still thinking about the Vandy game. But it definitely gave us a lot of confidence. We were glad to see, you know, just how good we could be when we dialed in. But we also can't get overconfident and think that just because we beat Vandy, that means that, you know, all we have to do is show up on Saturdays and we'll win. You know, we have to take that same mindset that we had in those weeks of practice leading up to it and just apply it every day. That's really what's going to keep us going.
And I want to ask you, man, because I know, you know, obviously we want to spend a lot of time talking about the upset, but I also wanted to take it to a different perspective for a second, because we've talked to a lot of guys on the show before, FCS guys, Division II, even some Division III guys that were affected, obviously, with, hey, last fall, you know, spring into the fall of last year, cancellations due to COVID-19, obviously, push into the spring season. Talk to me a little bit about just playing in the spring, for one, because hey, it's the first time that's ever happened, right? And do you feel like having that spring going right into the fall was beneficial to you guys in any way?
I honestly do think it was beneficial. And a lot of people said that the quick turnaround would probably hurt, but I think it helped a lot. You know, we were still coming. I mean, we just had played, so and we didn't lose any guys, so it's kind of like you were still in that game mode. It's not like we played in the fall and then didn't play another game until the next fall. I mean, we were just playing games a month ago, so that's still been a lot of our minds. And we had a pretty decent spring, but we definitely feel like we could have did more. So just having that mentality and that want to in us, I feel like that definitely propelled us into this fall.
And what's it like just having a more normal fall back, man? Because I know it had to be super difficult just trying to navigate all the uncertainty. See, like, when are we going to play football? Is it going to be this year? Is it, if we're going to push into the spring, are we definitely going to have a spring season? Knowing that we are back in the fall, college football is upon us. It's a more normal season. What's it been like just getting back to that normalcy?
I feel like it just feels right. I mean, everything's kind of like coming back together, you know, with the community around school. You know, we're able to have fans in the stands now, so it just feels like we're getting back on track. You know, like you said, that spring season, that was the first time anything like that's ever happened. So we weren't really used to it. And then, like you said, no fans or anything like that. And even like campus life, it wasn't, you know, as much as it usually is. But being able to play in the fall and knowing we're playing in the fall, I definitely feel like we're able to just settle into our routine and just get the ball rolling.
And I didn't even ask about that, man. I can't imagine, because, you know, you're a senior, so you're of age and everything, right? I can't imagine what the sights were after that victory in Nashville. It had to be crazy just from that perspective, too. I didn't even think about that part.
Yeah, it definitely was crazy. I mean, I feel like we had probably more people than they did. I think at the end of the game, some of the Vandy people were cheering for us. So, I mean, it was just a special time. It was definitely unforgettable.
Now, this all being said, and honestly, there's a lot of ways we can take this conversation because it was not only a great victory, but I mean, what you guys as young players went through from the spring to the fall, and this is adversity that you guys are all having to adjust to. But what are some of the team goals? What have they set forward for the 21-21 season for the team and for yourself?
I mean, we all have our team goals. They never really change. Our team goals are win every home game, make the playoffs, win the SoCon and national championship. So those are our goals. And the funny thing is that even with that Vandy win, we haven't checked off any of our goals yet. We'll play at home these next 2 weeks, and we'll be able to work towards our goals then. But that just kind of puts you in perspective of that was a good win, but there's still more work to be done. And just because we beat them, that doesn't solidify anything. So those are our team goals. And then for me, there's some all-time records that I'm close to. And I mean, that's really what I'm just pushing towards now. And I just want to leave a legacy and just be remembered for, the things I do on and off the field.
And let me ask one question here really quick, Ryan. Let me get into this. I just want to jump in here. I'm sorry, I cut you off. I know. But I thought of something. With this notoriety and things, how are you getting hit up or anything for NIL stuff? Anything for your name, image, and likeness coming from, a smaller school? Is that new judgment in that new realm hitting you yet?
Yeah, it's definitely been in the works. I don't have anything set in stone right now, but I've definitely been talked to just around, our city. Johnson City isn't really a big city, and it's really new to them as well, just to be able to use college athletes. But since it started, I've definitely talked to a lot of people about that.
That's fantastic. And Quay, obviously, I wanted to reach out to you originally because I think that you're a guy that the NFL is going to have some interest in. I think you're a guy that can play on the next level with the physicality that you bring to the running back position and the good feet that you bring to the position as well. So I guess my last question is just kind of looking forwards for a second, man, because I know you have the rest of the season. That's where your priorities are. That's where your vision. How surreal is it to know now that you're at the apex of your career? It's almost time to maybe make that jump. How surreal is it just to think that in a very short amount of time, you could be a professional football player down the road?
Yeah, it's definitely hit me a lot. And, you try not to stay there in that mindset. But, I mean, It definitely does hit me. And just to know that, this time next year I could be playing pro football. And that's what I would that's been a dream of mine. And that's something I've worked for so many years. And just to know that, it's a couple months away, I mean, it is surreal. And it just really makes me hone into this season more, just knowing that, this is kind of like my last push to show what I can do and show these scouts the player that they'll get. But it's definitely a mind-blowing thing just knowing that, man, I've been playing football since I was 5, and back then NFL was just something you throw out there, something you want to do. But now seeing how close it is and seeing that it's a big possibility, man, it's an amazing thing.
Absolutely. So again, Quay Holmes, star running back, East Tennessee State University, fresh off the 23-3 victory over Vanderbilt. Quay, going to give you 30 seconds here, man. Any social media handles you want to throw out there? Anything at all that you want to leave just the viewers with? What you're excited for the season? The floor is yours, my friend.
Man, I just want to say y'all tune in to the Bucks, man. I mean, we got a lot coming. You see how we just started this season off. We're going to keep it going, and just want you guys to tune in. Follow me on Instagram, Quay_Uno. All lowercase letters. And yeah, man, y'all just tune in.
I love it, man. I love it.
Hey, Quay, if we can do anything for you at Maverick Sports Consulting, please check out the website. We do a lot of work with athletes on their interview prep and stuff to maximize what they're getting about what you're about to go through. Mm-hmm. And so if there's anything we can do for you as an appreciation for you coming on tonight, let us know. And if you want a free NFT, just let me know. We'll make one up for you so you can put it online and sell it.
All right, definitely. Appreciate that.
Absolutely, Quay. Well, we appreciate you, man, for hopping on. Best of luck for the rest of the season. I'll definitely be bugging you when it's draft time, though, to get another interview. But we thank you so much for coming on tonight, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right, David, 3 down. We're almost out of here. I mean, I'm telling you, man, I hit up Quay it was last fall because I had seen actually it was the spring. It was like right during the spring. He had a couple really nice games. I got a glimpse of him. I'm like, dude, this dude is a big physical running back. He runs hard, great contact balance, leg drive. I'm like, he's on my radar a little bit, And of course, I'm watching and I'm just like, dude, like this dude can play a little bit. So had to hit him up, had to get him on my radar a little bit. And he is, for me, a guy that I think NFL draft-wise we're going to have on our radars here very soon. And then, of course, perfect situation here, right, man? Like we got him, of course, on as he gets the upset victory over Vanderbilt. To cap off the night, man, fantastic interview sections tonight, David Turner.
No, I was excited about this. It's right before the first game, so the fantasy show made so much sense. But then to get Quay on after that huge victory for him and the whole program, and what I wish we would have had a little more time with him. So we'll definitely bring him back because I really wanted to dive into some of the NFT stuff or NIL stuff, and how it's working in a smaller town and how those conversations are going. I mean, everybody's reporting so much on the Alabama players making this money, but how is it affecting the small school? Small American young man's lives that, they could use a cheeseburger and fries too. You don't have to just give them all. You don't have to give all the Big Macs to the big boys. You can go down south and get some good home cooking now. So, I would love to help him out. And like anybody else who's listening, if you all want some help, just go to mavericksportsconsulting.com. That's what we're here for. We're trying to help you all out. So let us know how and where, and we'll show up and be there for you.
Yeah, man, the NIL world is something that I really want to just keep diving into a little bit because, of course, we had, Corey from Dreamfield on. I was watching Notre Dame game, and, at first, Kyle Hamilton has an interception for Notre Dame, fantastic football player, but he's on the other sideline. He takes his helmet off, and it's like seems like he's showboating a little bit. And then I heard someone kind of say, like, they think that's an NIL thing a little bit. He's trying to show his face, which I didn't even think about in the moment, but just kind of some of the little intricacies of the NIL and just how everyone now is going to kind of be pushing their name, image, and likeness out there. I think it's a fantastic conversation that we want to keep having. Want to thank everybody that stayed with us in the chat tonight, a part of the 3 interviews that we had on. Kevin was fantastic from Fantasy Pros. He came on and talked to us about Devi, Dynasty, a little redraft, a little bit of everything.
Campus to Canton.
Campus to Canton, baby. Yes, we're going to have a full show that's just all Campus to Canton. But then we have Jason on. That gives us the betting side, the gambling side to the fantasy sports, which honestly, it's not my world. So I was just listening to you guys talk. I was listening to him talk specifically. Tell me about it. I did not know much about it. And then having Quay Holmes on here after a huge victory over FBS SEC foe in Vanderbilt with 149 rushing yards in that game. He was the catalyst for that offense to score 23 points against an SEC defense. In theory, I mean, are they really an SEC defense? That's a conversation for all the time.
I was going to say it's Vandy. Slow down there.
Yes, but by definition, they are an SEC defense. So great performance, great show, David Turner. We're going to end here, of course, with our little segment of 30-second shout-outs. I would just like to say thank God for college football, man. I know we have NFL back for Thursday night here, but just having college, man, I was just sitting on the couch on Saturday. The baby was watching with me, and she was just like kind of crouched down on the floor. She was like encapsulated by college football. I was like, yes, thank you. I don't have to worry about you crying or, being hungry during college football. This is fantastic. So thankful to have college football back. David, as always, ending with you, my friend. What is on your mind this evening?
I'm gonna be right there with you. College football was great. I mean, as the listeners and audience knows, I can't move around, do too much right now. So, between the games early last week, there was Thursday, there was Friday games, there was Saturday all day, and then you get into there's still one on Sunday and one on Monday. It broke up my weekend so nice, and I got back into it, and I was just loving it. I was tweeting, I was doing stuff, that I hadn't been doing for a while, so it was really great. So I am echoing what you're saying, and I'm so excited for the NFL season to start and, to see this 17-week season and see how it all pans out and plays out. I was on a phone call today talking about AFC West or East, and it seems like my take on the AFC East is a little bit out there, but I told them we'll see after week 4 or 5 if who's coming alive and who's dying down. So it'll be fun. It'll be really interesting to see how they manage rosters and stuff. That one extra game really does matter. So it's going to be an interesting ride this year, and I'm sure we'll be taking it with all the fans. You and I will be talking about it every Tuesday night. And thanks to everybody who's coming through. Thank you for helping me with the podcast and everything while I've been on the healing, on the mend, and now it's just time to get after it and do some good stuff with some football.
Yeah, man. I got to ask you about your AFC East take because I have not heard this yet, but want to thank everybody that stuck around with us. If you can do us a solid, really, we really appreciate it. Outside of continuing to listen because you're fantastic, we would appreciate a like, we would appreciate a share, we would appreciate a recommendation. And of course, go to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. Tell us how awesome Ryan and Dave are every single Tuesday night, 8:30 Eastern time. Enjoy football this week, folks. We'll be back